The bakery server is one of the best, if not the best building server in all of Minecraft, with some of the most talented and well-known builders in the world. And I had the opportunity to build with them. Crazy, right? So sit back, relax, and see how me, little Blaze the Amaze, was able to participate in this legendary event. First off, let me just get a few things out of the way, as I would first like to credit my talented teammates, whose builds you will see throughout the video. So, Naru, Netem, Patpak, Rampy, Raze, Ramona, Raz, Remy, Sam, Sand, Undie, Wani, AJ, Clove, Flake, Flora, Goop, Rat, Joey, Kong, Massive, Lacorn, Way, Jaso, and even though they couldn't participate, Slim, Pug, Saber, and Prism, and the very talented and cool team captain, Beef Builds. And finally, a huge thanks to the organizers Snarple and the bakery builders. But now that that's all out of the way, let's dive into the bakery's 72-hour building collaboration. So with our team being Gray Team, we wanted to have a dull and grayscale theme, however with pops of color, and having themes of cyberpunk, brutalist, dystopian, and kowloon cities. But now you're probably thinking, what theme did you pick, Blaze? Well, I first started with the idea of cyberpunk and kowloon cities merged together. Sorry, I just really wanted to make a quick montage. But to summarize, this is what I did in more detail. I loaded in with so many people, lined up for our permissions from Snarple, and traveled to our gray section of the collab. And I just started the build as any other build I would, with the usual wool outlines and shapes and different colors distinguishing each future build. After that, I really wanted to go out of my comfort zone and build something truly amazing and in a style I've never ever tried. So I wanted to go with a few vibrant colors and hues, but still keeping it somewhat unsaturated and grayscaled, and had a lot of fun messing around with debugged blocks, because I usually have to make it survival friendly, but not this time. I could do whatever I wanted. Oops, I don't know why my voice went weird there. Anyway, and what was I talking about again? Oh yes, the build. The build was really taking shape, literally, and I continued to pack it full of details, with colorful roofs and little jutting out sections, whilst trying to keep the base gloomy and gray. And as you can see, I added another tower, but red and maroony this time, that was actually inspired by the practice collab that I did with my team, where as you can tell, we went very cyberpunk / downtown vibes, if that makes sense. Anyway, I keep getting distracted, but more distracting later, and I just realized that I have the wrong skin on. So just 1 second, and there, boom. Now I'm feeling much more gray. Now, finally, back to the build. To give a further feeling of mysterious cyberpunk, I wanted to add a few obscure pipes spewing toxic and harmful waste onto the land, very fitting to the theme. But then, the scariest thing happened of the whole event. The whole server got jump scared by a job application. I know, right? So rude. And sorry if I just jump scared you. But back to the build. And I didn't record the building process of this next build for some reason. I somehow managed to forget to record with OBS, replay mod, or flashback. Yes, very disappointing. But nonetheless, I added a double chimney, or smokestack you could call it, that this cyberpunk / factory-esque building needs to have. Then I basically added every future outline of my cyberpunk city with big old cubes. Yep, a bit ambitious, but spoiler alert, I completed the entirety of the city on day 1, so it's fine. However, later in the day, I continued to add details to my chunk of the collab, with adding a purpley and orange window, and a little medieval castle-y section to try to ease the transition to our team captain's temple. Then I went on to adding a small, little cute green-leaved tree to give the very futuristic and artificial build some much-needed life. And because cyberpunk is heavily inspired by Japan, I thought, hey, I should do some traditional and classic Japanese buildings with the dark slanty roof, so that's what I did. And I utilized many different building strategies, and I really like how it came out. And again, to further produce the Japanese feeling, I made a little cherry blossom tree with floating tulips around. Don't know why my accent just keeps changing, but I did do an accidental British accent because I like the way they say tulips, like chew lips instead of two lips, you know? Okay, what am I even saying? Anyway, Snarple wanted a group picture, so we all huddled together, and you just gotta take my word for it since the skin was bugged out for some reason, but I got to wave and see Germsy Boy, a really cool, artistic, and talented survival building YouTuber. Definitely go check him out. But finish this video first. I just finished some bits and bobs and odd jobs, and after that, to keep the magical feeling, I added a spout of water, spewing water that somehow separates in multiple directions, as if someone was putting their finger over it like you would with like a hose, you know? And it looks a little bit quirky, but I like it, so shut up. Just kidding. Please subscribe. Click like, click like, click like, click like, please subscribe. But then I had to tie some loose ends and finish some schnibbly bits that included the remaining buildings in the cities, but really tied it all together. And look at that. Oof. I love it. And now listen to tired me attempt to, but fail to explain the build. And now that it's about 10:30, I think I should probably stop building, as this is what I accomplished today. A huge cyberpunk / I think the name is kowloon or something like that. I'll put the word on screen. Maybe I said it right. But I'm very happy with this. Many different colors, shapes, really different techniques I've never been able to use because of, well, drip leaf in that position, grass on drip leaf, you know, carrots on slime blocks, just so many things I never did because I was always worried about survival. Infinite levers like this. And I think the cyberpunk section is pretty much done, maybe a few more touch-ups. But yeah, day 2 is officially done and a success. I was so tired of building that I said day 2 instead of day 1. Day 2 started off pretty much the same as day 1, with me making huge wool outlines for a cathedral that Ramona started on day 1 and asked for some help. So me being done with my city, I thought, I could try to help build a cathedral. So I brought up the walls with some red wool. I know, right? Very interesting. Then also added the future interior walls. Then I met up with Rampy, where we started to make some statues. He made the general shape and I textured and tweaked it a little bit, but honestly I really like them, especially with the crown, or looks like a farmer's hat, not quite sure, but nonetheless very nice. And me being a parkour pro and see somebody make a quick little course, I knew I had to try it, which I did the Neo and the second jump. First try totally, just ignore these, but I kind of biffed the ending by breaking blocks and accidentally flying. But I did it legit off camera, you just gotta believe me. Then had to snarply toilet someone, IYKYK. Then I had a spyglass duel with someone because priorities. And a little while later, I got back to working by starting the side arches of the cathedral, in which I took a lot of inspiration from Joey's amazing arches, and eventually came up with some shapes that I was pretty happy with. Again, utilizing things I've never done, like using glass panes, and using about every single white block in existence. And thought a mossy section would look good, but boy was I wrong. But don't worry, I eventually removed it. However, my next task was connecting this sort of town / cities stacked on top of each other to a Gothic cathedral. Weird, right? And started on making a building directly on the side of the church that was rather dark and kind of spooky, but also added some supporting beams, crosses, and lattices with vegetation and leaves growing around it, and then went on to detail the area above it. However, it looked too much like a mouth and eyes, so I had to change that, but completely ignored it and added a few touches on the building below. Then again attempted to assess the problem towards the top, but honestly just made it look worse. But procrastinating further, ignored it again. I didn't realize how many times I did, but rather I worked on the area at the bottom, with making some simple windows with overhangs that turned out pretty blazing amazing. And finally, I decided to fix it by adding some chimneys on the roof and merging it quite well, if I do say so myself. And I really cooked by making this really cool rail plus grindstone plus moss carpet design over chains that look like a machinery cooling off or something. I surprised myself. But away from the cathedral, and we realized every team had a block of glazed terracotta corresponding with their color, so we had to build ours. So I started by making the 16x16 base of it that we ended up not even using, so my 10 seconds of hard work was for nothing. Then thanks to Licorn made pretty much the whole thing, but couldn't figure out the last color, so like 5 of us joined to help, and I kid you not, it took us about 20 minutes to figure out the last color. We even ended up having to put glow lichen on it, because for some reason there isn't even a color in Minecraft that matches the color we were trying to find for the terracotta. But of course on the sides of the glazed terracotta don't line up, and they're all a little different. So thanks to Massive, who rotated it and fixed it. But 20 minutes of building was hard enough, so I needed a break. So I had to snarpily toilet someone again, and then worked on putting the gray glazed terracotta block under a really well done shoe made by AJ. But back to being unproductive, where I trolled someone for being AFK. And looked like I was going kind of crazy, but I promise, someone was there. I swear they were. Just replay mod glitching out. And back to 5 measly minutes of building where I made an interesting pattern next to the shoe plus glazed terracotta monument. But now, let's pan up and see what we created. And oof, I really like how everything turned out and how the transition flows somewhat seamlessly. So let's see again how sleepy me reacts to what I built on day 2. And alright, it is the end of day 2. For me, pretty much. It is 10:49 p.m., which I think that's enough building for the day. Today I just finished some loose ends on this city, but I'm really happy with this section. It's just kind of a weird, spooky, eerie little town, and I did this really cool thing with these chains and these rails, which works out really nice. But yeah, I'm really liking it, and I'm pretty proud of these arches. But yeah, with that, day 2 is another success. And sorry about my tired, raspy voice, and I forgot to have my mic cover on, so that's why it might have sounded a little bit weird. But on to... I first added little windows and details to a very boring white wall, and here is where I started messing around with layered glass. That just ended up not even looking good, and was so complicated because of all the random little windows, and was honestly more of a headache than anything else. But then I realized that the ground below my cyberpunk city was a little lackluster, so I added some rocky and worn town sidewalks and pavement to fully tie it all together. Then, to fiddle around with more glass, I removed the ugly gray and light gray attempted fog effect, and instead just used tinted glass that was inspired by Ramona, and black concrete to make the windows feel like a void of emptiness. Not me not wanting to do an interior, no, not at all. And me being a little touch-ups guy, I guess. I just finished some lacking parts. But now it was time for the top of the cathedral. Note the spires or spikes you see were made by Ramona, not me. However, something that was made by me was a general roof. So I started with an outline. That was miserable, so I restarted and went for a roof containing about 5 mini towers with spiky or churchy looking roofs. Yes, churchy is a word. And paired it with sandstone that I thought would fit the diorite very nicely. And obviously just copy and pasted it and put a little trim on each side. And just added a fill-in building that isn't meant to look amazing, but from afar makes it look much more filled in and completed. And a bit of building later, I found myself making a little circle indented into a wall that I was going to fill up with a car or some automobile, but then saw a bus directly above it. So I thought that would be boring having 2 buses right on top of each other, so I just left it for somebody else to fill. And after focusing on building all day, I needed a break. So me and Flake, aka AJ, decided to make Club Gray. A place for gray team members smaller than half a block could hang out. We even tried pushing some members in, but they were too focused on their builds. But all I hear is lameness. And me and AJ really decked out the place and made it really cool. And we listened to basically every single music disc. And with us being so small, we realized we could go through mud and make a secret entrance to the VIP lounge, detailing it with skulk and decorating it even better. However, nobody even showed up. But it doesn't matter, because Club Gray was still a success. And then our silly team captain used a world at a command and accidentally put all diamond blocks in someone's build, but had to leave and couldn't undo it, but thanks to my other teammates because they cleaned it up. However, this white section was looking a little bit plain, so I added my final build to day 3. Day 4, I woke up on the final day with about 2 hours to spare, and thanks to the other teams that were already finished with their builds, because overnight they completed some really tedious and uncompleted sections of the build. But we saw one other place that needed some help, so I began detailing it, and after building for so long and losing motivation and inspiration, I was really pleased with how it came out, especially the purple glass fog effect. And as the timer kept ticking down, me and Goop finished a little staircase and path that someone had previously made the outline of but hadn't finished, and made one final fog effect. And just like that, it was done. So Snarple called us over for some of our final pictures and awards, where funny enough, me and some other gray members accidentally sat in the light gray section, but we eventually figured it out. And to highlight the awards that gray team was involved with, Rat won MVB, Most valuable builder due to their great and outstanding building skills, whilst also doing it all on an Xbox with no Axiom or World Edit. Very impressive. And we also tied with Black Team for the best team skin coordination. So thanks to Sam, who made all of our outfits. They're honestly really cool. And just like that, it was over. This was truly some of the most fun I've ever had building, whilst also making so many lasting friendships and having so many funny moments. I will never forget this event. But one final thing to add. I'm not paid to say this, but I got some of the bakery merch. It's super sick, comfy, and amazing. And as you can see here with this super cool transition, I recommend getting some. So if you've been looking for a new sweatshirt, t-shirt, hat, etc., definitely go cop some. It will be linked in the description below, along with all of my team members' socials. So go support them too. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, well, what are you even doing? And while you're down there, make sure to leave a like on this video, because editing this video and rendering all these clips took absolute ages. But with that, I thank you for watching, and so long.